Welcome to the Assist Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and today there's not an open. This is a emergency podcast based on everything that's going on with the NFL, which is very nice to have all these storylines and such as we all sit in quarantine around the country, despite me looking out on out of my window and seeing a steady stream of cars going around everywhere. People in Central Florida do not care about the coronavirus. I can tell you that right now. Everyone's on the beach, which is fun. Probably not good for the disease transmission, though. But anyway, joining me today is JJ Conklin to discuss some really wild NFL stuff going on. JJ, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been dialed in today while at work. We're quarantining a little bit, I guess, but I'm still sitting around doing nothing, as co-ops often do, and it's been interesting, to say the least.
Sounds like great social distancing.
Yeah, I'm at my desk, and I don't want my coworkers to bother me, and I don't think they want me to bother them, so we're kind of doing our own thing.
Anyone coughing gets sent to the emergency room, right?
Well, I mean, we're in America, so yeah, we'll send them to the emergency room. If we had anyone in from South Korea, or North Korea, we might want to treat them like they do at their home country, but...
Yeah, that was rough.
So we'll give them a snap and they'll disappear.
Basically. So the biggest news of the day that was also rough for one team and one individual is Bill O'Brien, the coach and also GM of the Houston Texans, who should not be the GM anymore. I think it's fair to say. He said questionable moves in the past, for instance, trading a bunch of picks for Laremy Tunsil and other players. But today he decided that DeAndre Hopkins, all-pro wide receiver. He's had over 1,100 yards for the past 3 years. Probably easily one of the, I'd say, top 3 wide receivers in the NFL.
Least, yeah.
Traded him for, yes, he traded him for David Johnson, who last time I checked here, I'm looking at my notes here, he had 345 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in 13 games played, and was benched for Kenyon Drake by the Cardinals, right? I'm just making sure I got that down here. A second-round pick and a 2021 fourth-round pick, and he also traded a fourth-round pick with DeAndre Hopkins. So, what? Why?
Yeah,
if you're doing this deal, don't you have to get a couple first-round picks? This is ridiculous.
At least I saw this, and I'm like, DeAndre Hopkins, he's leaving. Okay, they better be getting something good, right? Like this is a blockbuster trade. And then I'm like, David Johnson, all right. Let me look him up real quick. Okay, yep, just as I suspected. What the hell are the Texans doing?
David Johnson was he's still a top 5 fantasy pick last year, and very good player, obviously, used to be. Anyway, kind of fell off last year, as I described with his stats and numbers. So he's at the basement value, that he'll have over the next couple of years, especially after he signed a major contract for running backs. I believe he's one of the top 5 paid running backs in the league, which, as everyone now knows, is that running backs aren't that valuable in the league anymore. There's not. You can replace them pretty quickly. And DeAndre Hopkins
look at the Steelers.
Yeah, exactly. And DeAndre Hopkins is not someone you can replace easily. I mean, like we said, I don't know whether you put him in front of, people like Julio Jones or, other great receivers that are out there. I almost said Antonio Brown. Goodness, it's been a long day.
Maybe 3 years ago, maybe.
Right. But this is baffling to me. This doesn't make any sense. I think there's a Field Yates tweet of ESPN that was really funny. Or they said that David Johnson, they were showing Deshaun Watson, the Houston quarterbacks, weapons next year, including DeAndre Hopkins, because I believe it broke that David Johnson was getting traded before they broke that Hopkins was getting included in the deal. So he's tweeted, I was like, DeAndre Hopkins, all these people, and he's like, well, never mind. I'm just stunned. Poor Houston fans.
Yeah, what? I mean, he's a megastar. He's a franchise wide receiver. He's been at the core of their team for a long time, and now he's just gone.
Yeah, he's right up there.
For what?
Yeah, a second-round pick. Houston still doesn't have a first-round pick this year. After that,
they should have they should have at least gotten a first-round pick, because you know what you're getting with DeAndre Hopkins. You don't know what you're getting with a second-round pick, but I mean, in most cases, you know that you're not getting a DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, there was Tom Brady as like a 7th-round pick, so I guess maybe they'll hit the lottery with someone who breaks out, but the value of a second-round pick and a 4th-round pick and a running back well past his prime is nowhere near that of DeAndre Hopkins. So,
yeah, and here's the problem with that line of thinking, right? Because you're trading. I'm not saying you're wrong, but like with what you're saying, is that DeAndre Hopkins, right? Someone of the level of that Michael Thomas, tier 1 level receiving guy.
Yes, for sure.
You trade him for a 2nd-round, 4th-round pick because maybe you need to cut some costs, whatever. I don't know why Bill O'Brien did this. I'm not saying, but whatever. It's saying your logic, right? Maybe you find a diamond in the rough, right? So the problem with that is the same moron, Bill O'Brien, who made this trade is going to be the same one picking those players. So, right. In my mind, if you're an idiot one where you can't evaluate that DeAndre Hopkins is so much better than David Johnson, how the hell are you going to evaluate a 2nd-round pick well? Poor Houston fans. I feel bad. I mean, the Texans haven't been around for that much, for that long. They were, I believe, the last franchise created. But man, you get Deshaun Watson. He's so good. He's so good in that draft that featured Mitchell Trubisky and such. Fantastic. He fell into their lap, and they're wasting him.
They really are. I mean, as a Browns fan, I've seen our organization do some stupid things, but most of them happen on the field more so than off the field. So,
yeah. I'm as a Lion fan, I'm frustrated for the Texans fans because it's just like what they haven't, that Bill O'Brien's been the GM now for most of the past year. And it's like, I think there was a lot of times in basketball and the NBA, that you'll recall people like Stan Van Gundy and Doc Rivers were both the president and coach at the same time. For people familiar with sports, basically, you're coaching, you're doing day-to-day things, GMing, you have to do a lot of different things, or president in the NBA as well. Like, why do people still think one person could do these 2 jobs? I don't get it. I don't. It's.
I mean, I think the idea is that if you're the one that is assessing the potential talent and working with the current talent, you can better find what sort of fits your team or what your team needs and things of that nature. But that is a big job for one person, and clearly it's not working out for I guess not clearly. We'll see what happens after this year. But I don't think it's going to work out for the Texans this year. But I mean, I think for some people, they might be able to do it and do it well, because you can fill the holes, you can assess the talent, but there's so much that goes into both roles that if you communicate well between the 2 of them, you're going to do a much better job with 2 people than one person. I don't know if you save on payroll by having one person do both jobs or what, but
right. You know what I think?
No for me, dog.
You know what I think would be having 2 people would be good for? Ready? Here, let's play a scenario. I'll be Bill O'Brien, right? Okay. Hey, GM that we should have for the Texans. I want to trade DeAndre Hopkins.
All right. I look for a good deal and get some good return on this trade.
No, I think we just need a 2nd-round pick. I think we just need a 2nd-round pick and maybe a running back that under 300 rushing yards. I want him to be fresh. Even though he's 30, that'd be good.
Are you sure you don't want a 1st-round pick or another star? Because DeAndre Hopkins he's a big deal.
Nah, I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is only a top 3 wide receiver. Don't know if he fits our offense.
All right. Whatever you say.
It's horrible. It's just I can't. I still can't believe it. On the flip side, the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, Kyler Murray looked really good last year. He's got to be the happiest guy in the room after getting DeAndre Hopkins. This is a completely fleecing, and I don't know if the Cardinals, will make some noise next year, but, the Seahawks, might be losing Jadeveon Clowney, defensive end, the 49ers are still a very strong young team, and they also, we'll get to them a little later with the deal they made today. But, in the NFC, it's loaded, it's tough. The Saints are getting older, obviously. The NFC East is still a little rough, so it wouldn't surprise me to see the Cardinals in the extended playoffs next year as a 7th spot, possibly, or 6th spot.
As a 7th spot, the extended playoffs.
Extended.
When you've got DeAndre Hopkins and you've got a quarterback that can make magic happen, it's nice. And it's not like they sacrificed their run game to get him.
Yeah.
They sacrificed their backup running back for a good chunk of the season, who's on the decline, so why not? I'd be pretty content.
Yeah, and the Cardinals do in fact keep their running game going as they use the transition tag on Kenyon Drake in the past couple days as well. So the midseason trade for the running back they ended up starting, they keep. So very interesting moves out of the Arizona Cardinals. There is another big trade involved in that division that literally just happened maybe 25 minutes ago. We're recording this at about 4:47 Eastern Time for those listening. So if anything happens after this, I'm sorry.
ESPN reported it 28 minutes ago.
There we go. Thank you for the exact time. San Francisco 49ers, the Super Bowl runner-ups, traded De'Forest Buckner, a stud on their interior of their defensive line, who had 2.5 sacks in 3 games over their playoff run and 8 sacks overall in the season, for the 13th pick in this year's draft. Your thoughts?
I kind of touched on it earlier. When you trade a player or when you trade for a player, you know what you're getting. You've been able to adequately assess them at a high level, professional scale. And when you're getting a pick, for starters, you might not even get what you're hoping to get. They might get picked earlier, and then they've been only assessed on the college level. They haven't played against elite athletes like in the NFL. So if they were looking to get a defensive tackle in the draft, then I think this is clearly a safer bet. I don't know what they were looking to do with that first-round pick, but I think that clearly DeForest Buckner is worth a first-round pick as an All-Pro, so I like the deal. I like the trade.
Yeah, it's interesting because, the Colts have, $100 million or something in cap space, and so they re-signed Buckner to a deal that's $21 million a year, so second highest defensive tackle in the league. I feel like something's going on here with the 49ers, though, because obviously they showed this year, despite being a very young team, that they are a very good one. And today they re-signed Eric Armstead, defensive lineman, for 5 years. So they made the choice to go probably with Armstead instead of Buckner, knowing that they also have Nick Bosa, that they also have other stars on their defense, and obviously with Jimmy G's massive contract. So now they have the 13th and 31st pick. The Niners don't seem to be in a position to where 2 rookies, even if they're good rookies, would help them. You know what I'm saying? I feel like either they're going to package these picks up and try to get into the top 5 or top 8 or something like that, or they're going to get another person that better fits their lineup. I don't know what. Maybe they need another playmaker on offense, perhaps, a wide receiver with Emmanuel Sanders hitting the block and such. It just doesn't seem like they're taking these 2 picks. This is certainly a cost saving move if you're not going to pay Buckner next year. That's fair. But I feel like they come April, which the draft is still happening as planned apparently, that the 13th and 31st picks will not be made by the Niners. I feel like something else is going to happen there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, because they don't have a lot of holes to fill. So if you give those picks to somebody who might be able to actually fill them, they might be willing to give some sort of a veteran or an already well-assessed player on a professional level to fit your squad. So I think maybe they'll trade away one of them. I don't feel like they'll trade away both of them, but when you've got a team that's pretty set up like they are, then it might be worth giving up both of them.
Right. Agreed. So it just depends on what they want and what's there. Seems like it's a very offensive tackle heavy first half of the NFL draft, so we'll have to see in the prospect pool. All right, moving on. A couple of the quarterback dominoes have fallen. I know there's a lot of talk about people such as Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady, less so about Jameis Winston after his 30-interception campaign.
Hey, 30 for 30.
Wait, real quick, did you see that he got LASIK eye surgery?
I did, yeah, and I saw a couple jokes about when Jameis Winston realizes that the other team's helmets are different colors and jerseys are different colors, and it's not just a 50-50 chance when you throw him the ball.
Could you imagine? I mean, for me, like if Matthew Stafford had a bad year, which he hasn't, but it's just like Matthew Stafford's eyes don't work, so he had to get surgery in the offseason and be like, "Are you kidding me?"
That happened to Steph Curry after, what was it, his first MVP campaign or his second MVP campaign? He got eye surgery in the offseason, and everyone's like, oh man, Steph Curry's going to actually start seeing where the basket is instead of just kind of tossing the ball to the blurry orange ring that he sees.
It's dangerous. That's crazy.
It is, yeah, but I have a feeling you're talking about the Titans.
Yes. So Ryan Tannehill returning to Tennessee on a 4-year, $118 million deal. $62 million of that is guaranteed. In addition, they also franchise tag running back Derrick Henry after his amazing run through the postseason and the end of the season. I just want to throw out a couple things here. So Tannehill, granted, completely transformed the Tennessee offense. But when you're going from Marcus Mariota to Ryan Tannehill, I'm not sure. Maybe if you just pluck in someone else. I'm not saying it's right. Just. Yeah. Congrats to Tannehill on that. Obviously, he's getting a lot of money. Not sure if it's all him. Throwing that out there. In their 3 playoff games, in which, of course, they beat the Patriots and then beat the Ravens and then lost to the Chiefs, he threw a total of 60 passes, which is an average of 20 a game, which is, as people know, much lower than usual in the NFL these days. My first reaction, maybe it's an overreaction, you can tell me, so that this is a lot of money for a kind of move. Granted, their other option was perhaps overpaying Derrick Henry. So, in that sense, when we already discussed that the running back position is declining in value, very much so, in that sense, I'd rather pay Tannehill than Derrick Henry because of the prices of getting a so-so quarterback, such as someone like, who knows, Nick Foles, or like we joke about Winston, but he was been on the market. So in that respect, I guess it's okay. I don't feel good about it, but I guess looking at their options, I think this was the right play rather than giving Henry the giant payday and then franchising Tannehill. What do you think?
I definitely think that franchising Henry was a good move. I don't like that they're overpaying Tannehill so much. I think that he's working for their system, but kind of like you said, if you pluck in another quarterback there, might do just as well, if not better. So, with all the free agent quarterbacks on the market this year, might have been worth it to look at Phillip Rivers or even Tom Brady, somebody who you wouldn't mind investing a little more money in, maybe for less than 4 years, but I feel like it'd be a safer investment to go that route than Tannehill. But yeah, like you said, spending a lot of money on Derrick Henry while he's a valuable asset and he had an amazing run in the playoffs, and he actually took the rushing title from Nick Chubb in his last regular season game. So I spite him for that, but he's a great athlete. It's just the value of the quarterback position in today's day and age.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously a team that ended up going to the AFC Conference Championship game, really surprising last year. So I guess basically they're running it back. I think it would have been interesting to have Tom Brady there. I guess we could talk about now what that means for him. It looks like now he's going to go to New England, right? I mean, I don't really see him going to Las Vegas or the Chargers, no matter how much smoke is blown up about it. Can you really see him playing in, Los Angeles or Las Vegas next year?
I can't see him playing in Las Vegas. I don't think he'd play for the Raiders, but I think he could go to the Chargers, especially with Phillip Rivers leaving. If the Chargers aren't looking to get someone young out of the draft or someone young from another team, I wouldn't mind as a Chargers fan, I don't think I'd mind plucking in Tom Brady for a season or two until we find someone young and gung-ho, whatever. But I think he'll probably stay with the Patriots. I think the safe bet for Tom Brady is to stay with the Patriots. But I think it would be really ballsy to go to the Chargers and do something that Phillip Rivers was never able to do. So kind of get rid of that. Tom Brady's just a system quarterback that everybody says. I think a lot more people think that it's Bill Belichick that is so important with that dynasty than Tom Brady, because he's a good quarterback, but he's surrounded with weapons. So go somewhere else that's without Bill Belichick and give Bill Belichick an opportunity to prove his worth without Tom Brady, and give Tom Brady an opportunity to prove his worth without Bill Belichick. But I think he'll probably stay in Boston.
Yeah, the whole Belichick thing's really interesting. No, because they have an old Auburn quarterback, Jared Stidham, on the roster, who I don't think is a starter really right now. Obviously, maybe there's rumors that they could circle back for Teddy Bridgewater, which would be interesting. But who knows? So running through a couple other quarterback things, Dallas, unsurprisingly, putting the franchise tag on Dak Prescott as they wait to get a long-term deal. I assume he'll get paid eventually. Jerry Jones doesn't let star quarterbacks leave in free agency. But that domino officially having fallen, and then Kirk Cousins also getting an extension in Minnesota. So
with Dak Prescott, they put the exclusive franchise tag on him, right?
Yes.
Wait, is that different than a regular franchise tag? That was the first I had heard of it when I'm looking at headlines and articles, and they all said specifically the exclusive franchise tag, whereas for like Derrick Henry and AJ Green, it's all just a franchise tag.
Right. Let me see here. Let's poke around ESPN. Because I did see that as well, and to my knowledge, the franchise tag allows you just to negotiate with them anyway, regardless. But I wasn't. You're right, because I did see that, and I wasn't sure.
They were all saying, well, now he can't sign with other teams, and I'm like, well, I thought that's what the franchise tag meant, was that you locked him down for the next season, and he gets paid the average of the top 5 annual salaries for that position.
Right. So that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing too. So, yeah.
Kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I guess it's just a fancy word. Maybe Jerry Jones put it in. He's just exclusive. That's what I want to do. So.
I made it sound cooler, but yeah, good for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, it's just kind of Kirk Cousins has always been that kind of quarterback. She's like, all right, cool, guess so.
Yeah, nothing crazy, nothing groundbreaking, but I mean, 2 years, nothing super committal. It's whatever.
Yeah, feels right. So a couple other franchise tags. You mentioned AJ Green getting tagged by the Cincinnati Bengals. It'll be interesting if they trade him or if he stays. Obviously, with their presumed drafting of quarterback Joe Burrow in April. Kansas City also has franchised defensive end Chris Jones. A lot of people saying he should have been the Super Bowl MVP over Mahomes, so they keep him around as well, hoping to work out an extension there. Tampa Bay keeps Shaquille Barrett, sack leader, franchise tag, and Hunter Henry, the tight end from the Chargers, has been franchise tagged as well. Any of those stand out to you as being particularly notable or helpful for their teams?
Well, I think that in terms of making their potential first number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrow, happy, Cincinnati made a good move in franchise tagging AJ Green, because I've heard that Joe Burrow was imploring them to keep some stars or some weapons around them at the wide receiver position. So even though AJ Green's kind of getting old, beaten up, not exactly playing as many games as he used to, I think that'll keep the veteran aspect in the locker room, and I think you really need that for rookie quarterbacks like Joe Burrow. You need someone to be able to lead the locker room if it isn't the quarterback, and I think that AJ Green might be that pillar for the Bengals. And I live in Cincinnati now, so I've got all the people at work that want to talk about football. They want to talk about the Bengals, so I guess I gotta familiarize myself with that.
Yeah, for sure. I always forget Cincinnati even has a football team. They've just been so so irrelevant lately. Also with Cincinnati,
I forget about the Reds more than the Bengals because I'll be like talking about baseball and they're like, "Wait, you're an Indians fan, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, you probably follow the Reds." I'm sorry.
Yeah, another thing, talking about the Bengals, is their presumed trading of Andy Dalton at some point this year. Rumors are to Chicago, possibly New England should Tom Brady leave. Interesting to keep an eye on there. There's a lot of quarterback movement, it seems like, this year, so I'm sure we'll have to do another one of these pods.
Who wants Andy Dalton? I don't want Andy Dalton.
I mean, if you're the Tampa Bay Bucks, you'd rather have Andy Dalton than Jameis, right?
Well, now Jameis can see his wide receivers different from the defensive backs, so he might do 30 for 15 this year instead of 30 for 30.
30 for 25, probably.
Yeah. Hey, improvement's improvement. I don't know. I think he might stay with Cincinnati because he's been there his entire career, right? So
yes,
kind of ride on the tailcoats of Joe Burrow for another year or two. Unless he's really looking to compete, then I think, yeah, like you said, the Patriots might be a good fit for him if they lose Tom Brady. He's a veteran as well, just not as he doesn't have as many rings as Tom Brady does, not as many stats, but he's also been in Cincinnati, so he hasn't had the system around him that Tom Brady's had. Maybe he deserves a chance.
Right. I think him going to Chicago would be interesting too, with Mitchell Trubisky there.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he would start over him?
Based on being a fan of a team in the division, the Detroit Lions, I would be more concerned with facing Andy Dalton than Mitchell Trubisky. Not overly concerned. Sure. I think if you're on a 0 to 10 scale, and 10's like terrified, like Tom Brady at the prime, Peyton Manning. Trubisky's maybe like a 2, and Andy Dalton might be a 2.25.
That's brutal. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the Bears would want to do that and get another mid-tier quarterback to compete with. It's not high school or college football where you want guys to really compete against one another. I think you really want a unified front as a starting quarterback. So that's why when Baker Mayfield was to back up for the first 3 games of his rookie season, it was kind of like it was an odd front because all the front office people and head coaches and coordinators, they were all in on. I don't even remember who the starter was, but do you remember? But they were all in on the starter, and then it kind of got a divided front whenever they weren't winning. It's like, oh, put in Baker, give him a chance. Like, put in Andy, put in Mitch. Like, I'd rather have a united front in that mind.
It was Tyrod Taylor, right, for Cleveland?
Yes, that's it, because everyone pronounced it Tyrod Taylor, but I also heard from the snobs that are like, it's GIF, not GIF, or whatever pronunciation police you have out there, that it's Tyrod Taylor, not Tyrod Taylor. I'm like,
wait, what? It's what?
Tyrod Taylor.
No, it's not. I'm sorry.
That's what I said.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't know, but yeah, that's right.
So speaking of the Browns, perfect timing here. You didn't even know this was coming because I didn't send you a Google Doc. The Browns have made a big signing, a 4-year, $42 million. I also saw 44, so $2 million difference. Not sure.
Yes, I saw 44.
Okay, with $23 million guaranteed for Austin Hooper, tight end formerly of the Atlanta Falcons, now a Cleveland Brown. 75 catches, 787 yards, and 6 touchdowns last year. So, I'll get your take on this as a fan, but I'm going to try to lead you in a direction first.
Okay, go ahead and lead the witness.
Don't you think this is a little bit of an overpay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will agree that it's a bit of an overpay because he is now the highest paid tight end annually in the NFL. What? But yes, he's the highest paid tight end annually in the NFL. But I don't think that'll be for long. I think Kipple is going to get a contract extension he's signing next year, and then he'll top it. And Travis Kelce is in the middle of a 5-year contract. So I don't think he's going to hit. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2 years, because I read that and I was like, no way. But like Kelsey's contract is $45 million, but it's over 5 years. So technically technically and not technically, he's the highest paid tight end right now. So yes, I do think that is overkill, especially with Njoku that the Browns already have as a decent tight end. And I know that Stefanski ran the most 2 tight end sets in the NFL last year as the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, but I don't know. I like having another tight end who's really good. I would have rather them drafted the University of Cincinnati tight end Josiah DeGuara in the draft, because he was really good. I think as a clearly unobjective Bearcat fan, I thought Josiah DeGuara was great this year, and I think that he would have been great for the Browns, but beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, tight end's one of those positions where you're right, it is helpful to have, extra tight end and a true tight end, as we've seen with Travis Kelce and George Kittle. They're true game breakers, freaks at the position, and also in the past with Rob Gronkowski, obviously people like Tony Gonzalez, it's a game changer. It can do a lot, obviously, with both Kansas City. Rest in peace. With both Kansas City. That documentary, by the way, was so weird. I haven't watched it yet, but I've been hearing people talk about it.
How can you say it was so weird if you haven't watched it, Zach?
Because I hear all my friends have watched it, and watching his whole career, we saw his whole career, and hearing what happened to the doc, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I recommend watching it. This is not an official sponsorship, but I recommend watching it.
Yeah, we don't sponsor murder, but it's on my Netflix watch, and with this quarantine, I mean, I have time for everything. Goodness, so with that, and obviously both Kansas City and San Francisco being in the Super Bowl this year with their stud tight ends just shows how great it is. Hooper's not in that class for me. He's a good tight end. He's a B tight end if those guys are A's, and I don't know if that's worth $11 million a year when, as the Browns showed, after some flashing moves made by John Dorsey last year with Odell and Jarvis Landry and other pieces being fit around there are a lot more holes on that team than the tight end and et cetera. Tight end's certainly one of them, but I don't. It just feels like it needs to be more spread out.
Well, here's what I do like about it. The Browns need protection on the offensive line for Baker. Yes. And when you get a tight end, you're not just getting a wide receiver like Odell Beckham Jr. or Jarvis Landry. You're not just getting someone who's fast and can run the ball like Kareem Hunt, although he did do a hell of a job blocking for Nick Chubb this year. You're getting a lineman who can catch balls. So I hope Austin Hooper is as good of an lineman as he is a wide receiver in the tight end position. And I think that's usually what makes the good tight ends good, is being able to block and catch and do everything else that wide receivers and linemen do. So that's the only place where I kind of think, well, they're going to spend money on a tackle anyways, and a tackle doesn't do you very much good if you don't have a tight end on at least one of the sides of the line that also know how to block. So there's that. For
sure. And then Atlanta, to replace Austin Hooper, traded for Hayden Hurst from the Ravens, also getting a 4th-round pick in that deal that sent out a 2nd round and a 5th-round pick. So I don't know whether the Ravens are a genius for getting a 2nd-round pick, or this just shows how dumb Bill O'Brien is that he also got a 2nd round and a 4th-round pick plus a shitty player for DeAndre Hopkins. Anyway, I digress. So Atlanta fills their tight end there, and Baltimore ends up with a good bounty for him. Also, Atlanta released Devontae Freeman, which I guess doesn't come as a surprise with the cap casualty, but big names on the market now that were released this week. Devontae Freeman, Minnesota released cornerback Xavier Rhodes, and Green Bay released disappointing tight end Jimmy Graham, who I think should just retire, but that's my perspective. He's just too old.
Yeah, the NFL in positions that aren't the quarterback or punter. Once you hit a certain age, it's hard to compete.
For sure. So, okay, I think that hits a lot of the areas right now. I've been updating the spreadsheet or the ESPN, and we're still good. A couple other franchise tags were placed as well that we could talk about. But also, I want to discuss some questions. I'm going to ask you some questions, all right? And just rapid fire. I want to hear it.
Oh, boy.
I want to hear the answers. Okay? Tom Brady will be on the blank.
Patriots.
Okay. Phillip Rivers will be playing for who?
Well, the last I saw where the Colts were looking at him, and it sounds good to me. I think they were pretty interested, so Colts.
I agree with both those so far. Jameis Winston goes where?
Florida State University. That's about the level he's playing at.
I don't know where he goes. Does he go to L.A.? Like the Chargers or the? Could you imagine him with the Raiders?
That'd be so odd. I think he'll stay in Tampa Bay, don't you?
I don't know if he'll stay in Tampa Bay. It just depends on what Tampa can do, I think. I mean, they're not going to get a top-of-the-level quarterback in the draft. I think they're too far back because I think teams like Miami will probably take Tua. The Chargers could take Herbert. So, I mean, if Tampa Bay wants Jordan Love, or if Tampa Bay packages a deal to move up with Detroit, perhaps, because I really want Detroit to trade back for that third pick. Maybe they can get Tua. I don't know. So, I don't know where he goes. I don't know who's sitting there right now with free agency starting tomorrow and saying, I want Jameis Winston. I don't know who's saying that.
Right. Yeah, not very many people.
Maybe people who think like Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, maybe Bill O'Brien wants him.
Bill O'Brien
trades get rid of
Deshaun Watson. Trades Deshaun Watson for a third-round pick.
And Jameis Winston.
And Jameis Winston, you're right. Amari Cooper, will he be on the Cowboys?
I think yes, since they just re-signed Dak Prescott, and he's a decent quarterback. Well, re-signs, whatever. Yeah,
franchise tag. Yeah, it'd be really interesting if they let him go though, because they traded a first-round pick for him pretty recently. I mean, that'd be a lot of sunk cost in there for him just to walk away for nothing. Did you see Stefan Diggs? His tweets recently?
I actually just saw them as I was low-key preparing for the podcast, and how he's basically saying he's outie. He's not staying. It's not working for him.
So, Stefan Diggs, I accidentally clicked on the tweet. Didn't want to do that. Just wanted to read them. He tweets, "It's time for a new beginning." And then it looks like to a reply for someone said, "Nah, this ain't one of them times, champ. Something's going to happen." Something that we talked about earlier in the podcast, Kirk Cousins signed an extension this year. Do you think this is directly at Kirk Cousins? And if so, what the hell do the Vikings do? Because I'm guessing they'd have to eat dead money if they were to trade him, and they're pretty up against the cap as well. And obviously he's a great player, but now they have no leverage. Adam Thieling's still there. So, I mean, what do you do? That's crazy.
I don't think it's directly a quarterback situation. I think usually it's like an institutional thing. So part of it might have been re-signing him, but I think it's some sort of more beef between whether head coach or coordinator or GM or owner or something, or even just like the locker room environment. It's hard to just, when you're making millions, I think it's hard to put, when you have so many guys in a locker room, just put it all on one guy and say, this is why I don't want to be here, or something like that. Also,
I feel like it is at Kirk. Just saying.
Breaking news. That's all right. Breaking news. Offensive tackle Jack Conklin has agreed to a 3-year, $42 million contract with the Cleveland Browns.
Interesting. I just saw that now.
$30 million fully guaranteed.
So the Titans declined his 5th-year option, right, last year.
Mm-hmm.
But he played very well, former Pro Bowler. I mean, I don't hate that. That's not a ton of money.
I don't mind it because, well, I mean, it's it's almost the same amount of money in total, but one less year than their stud tight end they just signed. But
not stud tight end.
I didn't say star, stud. But I like it because my last name is Conklin, so I'm going to hear my name on national television frequently. And Jack is similar to John, so they might sound like John Conklin, which is my legal name. But I don't know. I like it. I'll take it. We need a tackle, and a rookie tackle might not have done it for us. So we got ourselves a little bit of a vet, and more to come.
It's interesting that, I mean, obviously, like, we just literally highlighted the Browns need help, right, on their offensive line for Baker. So, I mean, I think we're pretty should be prophets after that one. I mean, just talked about that, and here it is, live, broke perfectly. And, I mean, like you said, I don't think, I mean, if you look at the difference between the tight end and the lineman market, I think this is a fair thing for a tackle, and obviously a Pro Bowl level player. I like this move by the Browns. And obviously you don't have to get a custom jersey anymore for Conklin now, so that saves you some money too. So there you go. I like this. I like this deal way more than the Hooper deal.
Yeah.
Well done, Cleveland.
Yeah.
So
go Browns.
There you go. One last thing I also want to talk about is Chicago, obviously, with Mitchell Trubisky. There's rumors they're in for Andy Dalton, as we already mentioned. There's also rumors they're in for Nick Foles. So, as you kind of highlighted already, that they are straight into the medium to subpar quarterback market. They look to be all over it, along with already employing Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah. This is interesting. We've seen such good things from Nick Foles. But does he really move the needle for Chicago when he's still got Aaron Rodgers and Minnesota? I mean, who knows? Minnesota might be combusting right now for all we know. But that NFC is still loaded. It just, I don't know. It feels like if they're going to do this, they need to do something else than just go for another veteran, especially Nick Foles' contract. Oh, my goodness.
In Jacksonville. He signed that right after he led the Eagles to a Super Bowl after Carson Wentz got injured, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is way, way more inflated than his actual value. So I think that'd be a bad move for the Bears. As I mentioned, like I thought Andy Dalton would, but I don't know. I think I might take Andy Dalton over Nick Foles.
I would too, especially with the contracts difference. So
yeah, right. Yeah, that's not something that I typically look at too much, just because that's more analytics than I dive into, and by analytics I just mean numbers. But because you brought it up, I think that's for sure a good reason.
Yeah. So I think we've covered everything up to this point, unless you feel like we have something else to discuss.
Yeah, I mean we might hang up, and then in like 10 minutes we might get another update after we hang up. So
that's true. We might have to do an emergency pod for the emergency pod. No, we'll definitely we'll do another free agency thing here in a couple of weeks once some of these dominoes fall with the quarterbacks, especially whether it's with you or with someone else. Well, the NFL, free agency, and UFC, the only sports we have left. So we got to make the most of them, right?
I'm interested to see what the draft looks like. I think they announced today that there'd be no in-person drafting live event. It's not going to be the big stage in Vegas that we saw picture graphics of a couple months ago, so it's kind of sad.
Roger Goodell just doesn't want to get booed. That's why he's tired.
Cleveland 2021. That's the next in-person draft.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
Cleveland's popping.
Sounds like fun. Can't wait for the Lions to mess up their pick. In both years, in Cleveland and in Vegas. It's just a thing they do now.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right. Well, JJ, thank you for doing this. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me, Zach.
Have fun social distancing.
Chat at you later.
Yeah, but not together.
Nope. Bye.
Only online. Take care.